In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Deal Board. And we've got an exciting topic for you. Andy and I were both recently asked to speak on franchise resales and acquiring existing franchise locations. So we figured this would be a really great topic for our listeners because it's a unique market where you're able to buy existing franchise operations, maybe one or maybe eventually multiple units over time. And the buying process, the acquisition process does differ a little bit. So we wanted to bring to light a little bit of those differences and opportunities today.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for people to go out there and get into even an established franchise. I was just with a franchisor, and he was telling me that at any one time, 10% of, and he had about 250 units. He said at any one time, at least 10% of his franchises are up for sale. And we've seen this over time. I mean, it's not necessarily that the franchise is doing bad. There's the big D's that happen to people, whether it's death, divorce, disability, disagreement with partners or anything like that. There's always a reason why people are ready to sell. It's just a life cycle, right?
And actually 10% is not bad. So, because if you look at all businesses, we know about 20% of owners are thinking about selling at any given time, right? And franchises are no different. They're still business owners. They still have the D's, they have life changes. So I think, the first opportunity that we'll talk about is that if you're thinking about getting into a business, specifically a franchise, it doesn't always have to be a startup, right? You can, with the franchise brands that you're currently working with, ask about resale opportunities, or you can search for franchise resale opportunities through the brokerage networks that you're working with, like Transworld. Those do exist. And like 10, 20% of the brand's locations are probably looking to get out at that point.
Yeah, and a lot of times you can get a good deal too, because a lot of, obviously those franchises for sale are usually located in a very specific place. And franchisors, a lot of times they're advertising, they're getting responses from all over the world sometimes. So for them to sell that one specific unit, and a lot of times they don't want to see an existing franchise go dark. And they want to take them back. And, the franchisor just wants to help that franchisee sell. So you might be able to get a pretty good deal on some of these things too.
Yeah. And especially if you are already working with a brand, if you think about the opportunity cost of building a franchise from scratch, especially if you're dealing in brick and mortar, right? And you've got the build out costs, you've got the timeline to open where you've got a lot of cash deployed, but not a lot of cash coming in, versus getting in the same brand. Maybe it's not the exact location you want, but the same brand, existing business, already built out, already cash flowing. Like there's just it even from a deal, not deal perspective, it's just a better, business fit sometimes. So,
yeah, obviously it could be a great deal for you. Again, it's talking about timing. I mean, it just takes time to build out these franchises, especially if it's brick and mortar. I was just talking to a brick and mortar franchisor, and it costs almost a couple $100,000 to build out this franchise. And certainly in restaurants these days, it could be even more. So, and we're both doing some construction around the house, and we know how those construction jobs can go sideways or take longer than you think they are. So a franchise resale gives you the leg up that it's time certain. You can get in there right away. And a lot of times you can get in there even for less money than it costs. Now, there are valuation differences if the franchisee is successful.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes it's not as straightforward as a multiple of SDE or multiple of EBITDA, right? So I think if we take a look at, the example of brick and mortar, and I think when people think of franchises, they think of restaurants, right? Franchising so much more than that now. We both know that personally. But if we look at the traditional restaurant location, like to get that restaurant location open could cost $500,000, right? So when you're looking at the valuation, that valuation of that restaurant resale might not be as straightforward as a multiple of their SDE, accounting for the build out costs, especially if it was recent, right?
Right. Yeah. I think to go in there and get this done it's a way better path. So, also the valuation could be, if it's a successful franchise, it could be a little bit more money than an independent of the same brand. Think, a Chick-fil-A compared to a regular fried chicken stand or, a chicken sandwich shop. Obviously Chick-fil-A is going to bring more of a valuation because you're getting that brand as well. So there can be valuation differences where you could buy into a franchise that's more expensive than buying an independent. Same thing with pizza franchises, and same thing maybe with Service Master, or things that are going to give you a system that might be even better than owning an independent.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's across industries, but it's really that brand recognition, brand power. Once a franchise starts to establish that, they do deserve and ask for a premium multiple versus, their local competition. I think of Orange Theory and the brand dominance they've had over the last few years, like their multiples versus a privately held gym or hit studios. It's not going to be comparable, right? And it goes back to, Andy and I have talked a lot about this in valuation, and the price you ultimately pay for a business is a lot due to supply and demand, right? So an Orange Theory, a Chick-fil-A, something that has big brand recognition like that has a lot more demand than an independent business in terms of new ownership. So, I mean, sometimes, and we're talking about these brands like you could just go out and buy them. Like you can't really just go out and buy a Chick-fil-A and McDonald's, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit later of the multi-unit conversations. But some of these brands are so highly desired, you can't just go out and buy them unless you're already in the system. So that's how much power they've built up as brand recognition and marketing and creating that demand for themselves.
Some of those you mentioned, their valuations are sky high. I'm thinking the Massage Envies, the Dunkin' Donuts, those are very, very McDonald's. You can't get in there for a traditional multiple. These things sell for almost real estate multiples. I mean, it's crazy, like 7, 8, 10 times, because they're a brand that's very well known, and it's almost like buying a recurring revenue model kind of business. But your regular everyday franchise, we've sold plenty of things like Miami Grill. We've sold, again, Service Master. We've sold Pura Cleans. We've sold other franchise like that Signoramas, they command a better valuation than your independent sign shop, because the nice thing about buying these franchises and resales is you're still going to get the support and training.
Yep. Yeah. So I think when you get into that valuation process, you just need to know it's going to be unique to that brand, and then also unique to that location. So it could be a combination of cash flow multiples. It could be some build out or equipment or inventory costs, and the multiples are not going to be comparable sometimes to independent private market comparables. So with that, why don't we take a pause and jump into our listing of the week and deal of the week, and then we'll come back for part 2 of franchise resale process.
Excellent.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is listing of the week, and I have Kimberly Ramsey from Transworld Business Advisors of Eastern North Carolina, and she has a great listing today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is it's a small manufacturing business. They manufacture building materials. It's in Eastern North Carolina. It's been in business for 7 years. They've had revenue and income growth every single year.
Wow.
And they just recently signed up a couple of additional distributors to distribute their product.
Right. How much do they ask?
They're at $849,000, and they will provide up to $250,000 seller financing.
Wow. Okay. And how much is it earning?
Earnings, let's see, I think SDE were around 260,000, but it does have real estate.
Oh, so real estate included. Sounds like a great deal. Sellers are selling what?
Sellers are what?
Why are the sellers selling?
Oh, they have some parents they're taking care of that are very ill, and they just want to be able to meet the parents.
So the sellers need to move on. Sounds like a great business. Kimberly, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Cell phone is 919-413-3390.
Great listing. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week.
Sold.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is Deal of the Week, and we are talking to Steve Merritt from Transworld Business Advisors in the Houston area, Southwest Texas. And Steve, we're just talking off camera. You have become the crumble expert.
Yes, and I mentioned that it comes with a little bit of I'm not sure I want to be that guy, but I have become that guy. I think on my 15th store now that I've sold.
Right. So it's a popular franchise. It seems to be doing well. Their franchisees doing well.
It has done well. It did much better a couple of years ago when they went through a down spell last year, and
Right.
then the brand is picking up this year, so a lot more interest in the brand, and it's doing better this year as opposed to last year. They've has some lawsuits and other issues that they have.
Okay, great. And so it's an emerging brand again, and you know, franchises are popular. Do they trade for decent multiples?
You know, the one that I sold last year, the groups traded around 4.5 multiple, which is a little surprising.
Yeah, it's a strong multiple, and I did see that, so that's why I asked the question. So, 15 stores, and you see some more coming your way?
I see some more coming my way. You develop a bit of a reputation after you've sold a few. Your sellers will refer. Even I've found my buyers are referring some potential folks to me to visit.
All right. Well, that sounds like a good deal. If you have a crumble out there and you want to learn more about selling your franchise, give Steve a call. Steve, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Shoot me an email at smerritt@tworld.com.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for coming in, man.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098.
So welcome back, everybody. Those were great examples of deals. And so, hey, you know, buying a franchise is a process, right? And so it is a different process than buying an independent business. So you do need to go through, just like buying a new franchise, you're going to have to eventually deal with the franchisor and get approved.
Yeah. And I think this is good to be aware of as an overarching, this is a different process than just buying independent business, but also being as a buyer flexible and adaptable to each franchisor's process. So there's some franchisors that will have to have full approval, everything done, training completed before you can close on the business. There are other franchisors that break that process apart and maybe will approve you first, but won't send you to training school until after you close. And then there's every variation in between, right? So just knowing that there's a couple extra steps, franchisor vetting and approval of the new owner, the new buyer, and the training process, but they will have their own certain timeline by brand.
Yeah, and there can be there can be competency tests as well, and approvals that need to happen. I know several of the franchises we deal with have to deal with say English tests and financial tests, because you have to have those to actually buy the franchise. So
there's some licensing requirements too. So we've dealt with some construction or home services franchises where there are some license requirements to own or operate the business, and medical too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other big piece, just to be aware of, is there are sometimes additional fees to be aware of with the franchise resale process. When you buy an independent business, there's going to be a purchase price for that business. But with a franchise resale, there could be some additional startup or transfer fees really related to the training process that you just need to be aware of with that handoff from the buyer to the seller. And I think that, I mean, usually those fees are worth their weight in gold because that franchisor is going to assist in the entire transition process. If you think about it, you buy an independent business, you're really reliant on that owner to train you on how to run that business, how to grow that business. If you buy an existing franchise, you have that owner to train you, but now you also have all of the franchisor's resources to help in that transition as well.
Yeah, they're going to treat you as a new franchisee. It's very, they're going to want to make sure you have full training. They're going to make sure that you go through the full process. So that's why those transfer fees can get a little bit expensive because they still have to do the legal. They still have to train you. They might fly you out to their location, whatever, or they're sending people out to train you. It's a full process still.
Yeah. But like Andy said, definitely worth it. So you just know going into the franchise resale process, again, third party in the deal, there's going to be a franchisor approval. There's going to be some training and then some training fees associated with that at times. So the last thing we really wanted to talk about is, one of the big opportunities getting into buying into a franchise brand, and you can do this as a new franchisee or buying a resale, is you can, have this unique opportunity to grow through acquisition within one brand. So I think about, like, we were just talking about all those brands that, like, I think we're both a little too young to have invested in McDonald's, right? But if you bought one of the original Massage Envies, right, and you were able to be in that brand, acquire potentially multiple units through growth through acquisition and ride that multiple wave up, there's a whole niche market of what's called multi-unit franchisees that just invest in one specific brand and will grow their portfolio or valuations with that brand's increase in value too.
Yeah, that happened to some of my friends who own Dunkin' Donuts, and they owned like 18 or 20 units, and they sold to private equity. It also happened to my friend who bought into Orange Theory early on, and he owns Spain, he owns New York, LA, he owns a bunch of units around the country, and he has gathered and created a multi-unit franchise, and he has the ability to sell that to private equity. So it's a big deal when these multi-unit franchise, and we've seen this even at Transworld over the years, that what happens, even yourself, obviously, when you become successful in one unit, the franchisor does want to support you to expand and maybe take over franchisees that are not doing well. So, kind of back to the beginning, if you do have the ability to get into an established brand, maybe you could buy a one-off Dunkin' Donuts, and if you show them that you're a good operator, you're going to have opportunities to build.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody in a Transworld network who's familiar with McDonald's, right? And I asked them, how do you get into McDonald's? And they're like, well, the only way you get in as an outsider is you take over a failing location, right? And if you're able to turn around that failing location, now you've proven yourself to them. They will give you opportunities of not so failing locations, right? But it is a huge opportunity with established brands. And I think the other opportunity too is that sometimes you get in with a new brand and you really can invest in that low level and grow with the brand. And it may not be a home run like a Dunkin' Donuts, but we've seen, plenty of business owners. I've got friends that own a bunch of Meineke's, Papa Murphy's. Like, they're not the Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's, but they've done really, really well. So maybe it's not a home run, but it's a really solid triple, right?
Yeah, you could get in. If you get into a brand early, you can do really well. Like you did with Transworld, like my friend did with Orange Theory. He got in very early and believed in the brand and was able to expand with it. There's obviously a lot of opportunity for that out there in the world. And as these baby boomers get older, and you see brands go through cycles as well.
Yeah.
Like, so you see some of these old type brands get rebranded, brought back, and they do pretty well. So that might be another opportunity as well.
Yeah. So we wanted to bring this topic again. We both just spoke on this topic, but also I think sometimes when buyers are searching for businesses, they skip over franchise opportunities because, one, they don't understand it. They don't understand the differences that we talked about here. And sometimes they don't understand the big opportunity that they have as well in these businesses. So hopefully this brought some insights for you from that franchise world. And the next time you're scrolling through our listings and you see a resale opportunity, it piques your interest.
Yeah, no, it's great opportunities out there. Go out and get them. And don't be closed-minded to buying a resale franchise. Great opportunities.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.